Beavers are likely the most critical animal in the fight to restore and protect our natural environment from climate change. The wetlands their dams create are a perfect habitat that countless species depend on. But they're also a crucial carbon sink, or in other words, they're particularly good at removing carbon from our atmosphere. I have a whole video about beavers and the generational memory loss we've experienced with them, but I wanted to give one aspect of beavers its very own video. Beaver ponds are more than just habitat. They also create massive distributed water management and storage systems. This particular benefit will be indispensable in a world where weather and rain patterns are only becoming more erratic. Beaver dams are uniquely useful in water management. They help prevent evaporation, clean our water supply, mitigate the severity of wildfires, and promote a robust tree population. While we can and often do set out on huge projects to try and reproduce any one of these benefits, beaver dams are unique in that they provide all of them naturally. If you haven't watched my previous video about beavers and generational memory loss, I highly recommend you go do that first. Among other things, it talks about how beavers build dams to create deep water in which to hide from predators. These result in large ponds that slow the flow of water as it descends from higher elevations. As the water pools in beaver ponds, it seeps into the ground and begins raising the water table. Water table is a hydrological term that describes how deep you would have to dig before you hit soil saturated with water. This is how a well works. When you dig down to below the water table, the resulting hole fills with water from the saturated earth around it. The water level seen down in the well is exactly where the water table is. In some particularly wet places, such as the wetlands created by beaver dams, the water table can become so high that water from the surrounding soil actually seeps back into the river in a process known as hyporheic exchange. This groundwater infusion can make up 40 to 50% of the water in many small and medium streams, according to scientific estimates. This distributed water storage recharges aquifers and groundwater throughout a watershed during wetter months, and then ensures a base flow of water in the stream throughout dry spells. Storing water in a distributed fashion and underground solves one of the main problems plaguing our current water management practices: evaporation. The huge centralized reservoirs we currently employ to manage our water supply are usually in direct sun with huge amounts of surface area. Just take Lake Mead, a major reservoir in the American Southwest, as an example. It alone is estimated to lose between 600 and 900,000 acre-feet of water every year. That's more than 3 times the amount of water all 3 million people residing in the entire Las Vegas Valley consumed in 2018. Lost just to evaporation. Broadly speaking, it's estimated that 10% of the Colorado River's annual average flow is lost to evaporation every year. And if evaporation is not enough of an issue on its own, centralized systems of any sort are inherently risky. Having so much of the water supply we depend on consolidated into just a few massive reservoirs leaves us in a vulnerable position. Any sort of disaster to a major dam has the potential to throw entire regions into chaos. Furthermore, man-made reservoirs have a clear upper limit to the amount of water they can store. In particularly wet years, water authorities are often forced to release water from reservoirs to avoid them overflowing, wasting huge amounts of a critical resource. And as dams get older, the amount of water they can safely store decreases, only compounding the problem. Here, a sprawling system of beaver dams upstream from the man-made dam would help slow and smooth out the peak flows of water, preventing flooding and increasing storage capacity overall by making use of groundwater storage throughout the watershed. Beaver dams naturally mitigate many of the issues with our modern water management practices, and the best part is, once established in a particular area, they do it all for free. Considering their historical range and population, beaver restoration should be a national priority, considering how much they help promote water security, especially in arid regions like the American West. But beaver wetlands and ponds do more than just store water. They also vastly improve water quality. This is done through a process known as sedimentation, where as the water flow slows, the larger particles or sediment in the water settle down and collect on the bottom of the pond. For starters, this sediment provides the surrounding area with nutrient-rich silt that helps plant life thrive. But the sediment contains more than just dirt, with some particularly hard-to-handle pollutants like nitrates also finding themselves at the bottom of beaver ponds. Nitrates are a common fertilizer used in agriculture, so they often run off into local water systems, causing huge ecological disasters known as algae blooms. This is when the nitrates promote an unsustainable amount of algae growth that consumes all of the oxygen in the water, creating what are known as dead zones, where nothing can survive. However, if manageable amounts of nitrates settle to the bottom of beaver ponds, microbes process the nitrates into harmless nitrogen gas. Handling the pollutants in small amounts in ponds helps prevent the nitrates from accumulating and creating an algae bloom downstream. Similar processes occur with all sorts of pollutants, like phosphorus, metals, microplastics, and even ashes from wildfires, since wetlands and the plants they sustain are uniquely adept at filtering pollutants from water. By and large, using beaver dams and the resulting wetlands to create a system of large, natural water filters can vastly improve water quality, creating a healthier planet for everything and everyone. Additionally, the reduction of sediment in the water is wildly important to species like trout and salmon that are very sensitive to water quality. The last major water management benefit of beavers is that they help accumulate moisture where it's needed most, our forests. This helps reduce the severity and frequency of forest fires and promotes forest health. It likely goes without saying, but beaver wetland systems create huge strips of, particularly wet land, surrounded by particularly well-watered trees. These help break forests into drier sections separated by wetter boundaries, creating natural barriers that are harder for wildfires to just rip through. Furthermore, even if the fire jumps across the barrier, the wetlands themselves usually remain unscathed. During the fire, this provides a refuge for animals to hide in. But the true magic happens after the fire, as the wetlands and the trees they protected interspersed throughout the forest jumpstart the recovery process. The healthy and robust trees surrounding the wetlands help begin repopulating and recovering the surrounding areas affected by the recent fire. Furthermore, when it rains after a fire, beaver dams help prevent flooding and promote soil retention. This is a huge benefit since recently burned areas have no vegetation or roots to help absorb water and fix the soil in place, which can result in landslides and degraded soil quality. While beaver wetlands don't entirely solve this issue, they certainly help reduce its severity. With weather becoming more unpredictable, water security is likely the most existential issue we'll face in the coming century. We're going to invest huge amounts of money and effort to face this challenge, and I worry that we'll overlook a critical ally in the fight. Beavers are the OG hydrological engineers that evolved specifically for this purpose. The wetlands they engineer provide many of the benefits we need in one fell swoop. And to sweeten the deal, beavers do all the work and the maintenance. It would be a huge missed opportunity to not enlist them in our fight to save the planet. They're not just a part of the solution. In the case of water security, beavers are the solution.